This is material that I've covered before, but I think it should be put into its own video because on November 20th, 1963, we have two Oswald sightings, which are very credible, or at least one of them is very credible, but they're both very credible because they corroborate each other. So I think it deserves its own video. One of these sightings was at the Dobbs house, and Mary Ada Dowling was a waitress at the Dobbs house, and this is from her FBI interview. Mary Ada Dowling, 617 West 10th, advised she is currently employed at Skillearns Drugstore, number 41 Preston Road and Forest Lane. She advised that until recently she was employed with the Dobbs house at 1221 North Beckley, working during daytime hours. She said that she did not know who Lee Harvey Oswald was when she formerly waited on him when he ate breakfast in the morning, usually between 7 and 7:30 a.m., but that since Oswald has received so much publicity in connection with the assassination of President Kennedy on November 22, 1963, she became aware that he was the one who had been a customer at the Dobbs house. She recalled that Oswald was in the restaurant on Wednesday morning, November 20th, 1963, at about 10 a.m. She said that Oswald was apparently in an ugly mood at the time and said something nasty to her using curse words regarding his order. She said she told him that if his order was not right, that the Dobbs house would make it right. She said that shortly thereafter, Oswald again used cursed words in addressing her because she did not give him more coffee as soon as he thought she should. She recalled that Officer J.D. Tippit was in the Dobbs house at the time, apparently as a customer, and that when Tippit heard Oswald making his outburst toward her, Tippit shot a glance at Oswald. She said Oswald was already getting ready to leave, and nothing was said between Tippit and Oswald. She stated there was no indication that Tippit and Oswald ever knew each other. She noted she had known Officer Tippit for approximately 5 years because he had formerly come into the Continental bus station in downtown Dallas, in which bus station she worked in the drugstore. She said that Tippit was usually in the Dobbs house each morning about 10 a.m. or shortly thereafter to drink coffee. Regarding Oswald, Miss Dowling said she had not seen Oswald in the Dobbs house on Thursday or Friday, November 21st or 22nd, 1963, and she attributed it to the possibility that Oswald may have been angry with her because of their clash on November 20th, 1963. She recalled that sometime prior to their clash on November 20th, Oswald had, on one or two occasions, asked her for her name, and she would not tell her name. Miss Dowling stated that she had never, to her recollection, seen Jack Ruby prior to the time of the president's assassination on November 22, 1963, but she did recall that the night manager at the Dobbs house, Douglas Leake, had said after Jack Ruby shot Oswald that Ruby had been a customer of the Dobbs house during the night hours in the past. So Dowling says that Oswald was a regular morning customer and that she last saw him on November 20th, later than usual, and J.D. Tippit was also there. And this Oswald sighting doesn't merely rely upon Mary Ada Dowling. The manager of the Dobbs house, on December 5th, 1963, Sam Rogers, manager Dobbs house, 1221 North Beckley, Dallas, advised Special Agent Kenneth B. Jackson he had never personally known Oswald or Ruby, but that he had, since President Kennedy's assassination, recognized Oswald's picture as being that of an individual who had been a coffee customer in the Dobbs house restaurant. So, Sam Rogers also says that Oswald was a regular customer at the restaurant, though he doesn't, in the FBI report, relate anything specific about November 20th. And then we have Douglas Leake, who was mentioned by Mary Ada Dowling. On December 5th, 1963, Douglas Leake advised Special Agent Jackson he had, prior to November 22, 1963, worked the 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. shift at the Dobbs house. He said he recalled Ruby as a customer but had not seen Ruby for a year or more prior to November 22, 1963. Leake claimed he had recognized pictures of Oswald as being a person who had been in the Dobbs house about 2 times during the days preceding the assassination. Now, he says only 2 times, but he gets off work at 6 a.m., so he wouldn't see Oswald unless he was staying probably later than that. So he corroborates that Oswald was a customer of the Dobbs house. And then Miss Dolores Harrison, who was another waitress, she stated that during the latter months of 1963, specific dates unrecalled, Lee Harvey Oswald came into the Dobbs house numerous times. Mrs. Harrison related that on November 21st, 1963, she recalls Oswald having been in the Dobbs house for breakfast, specific time unrecalled. She stated she recalls this particular occasion inasmuch as Oswald had ordered eggs over light and when served made a complaint that the eggs were cooked too hard. Mrs. Harrison advised she prepared Oswald's eggs, and Mary Dowling, a waitress, served same to him. She related that although Oswald complained of the eggs, he accepted them. So this is, she's got the date wrong, November 21st, but this particular interview is in July 1964, so it's not surprising she might have the date wrong. But this corroborates Mary Dowling that Oswald was a regular customer, and that the last time she saw him, he was complaining about the food. So Dolores Harrison says Oswald came in numerous times before the assassination. Douglas Leake noticed Oswald about 2 times. Sam Rogers said Oswald had been a coffee customer, and Marietta Dowling said Oswald was a regular customer, usually between 7 and 7:30 a.m. But he was last seen on November 20th at 10 a.m., and J.D. Tippett was also present. And this is also a sensible sighting when you consider the geography. Oswald lived at 1026 North Beckley. He lived in a rooming house. He didn't have reliable food storage there. And so it's not surprising that he might walk down the street and eat breakfast often at probably what was the nearest breakfast joint. And so it all makes sense, and it's very well corroborated by witnesses. And the Ralph Yates sighting also came on November 20th. He in his statement here, he says November 20th or 21st, but he later settles on November 20th. Yates stated that he is employed as a refrigeration serviceman for the Texas Butcher Supply Company, Dallas, Texas, and in connection with this employment was driving a pickup truck on R.L. Thornton Expressway at approximately 10:30 a.m., 1/2 hour after he was at the Dobbs house, that is, after Oswald was at the Dobbs house, on either November 20th or 21st, 1963. He stated he noticed a man hitchhiking at approximately the Beckley Street entrance to the R.L. Thornton Expressway, and he stopped and picked up this man. So in Oak Cliff, a half hour after he was at the Dobbs house in Oak Cliff, Yates picks up Oswald. Yates said after seeing photographs and television pictures of Lee Harvey Oswald, he is of the opinion that the man was identical to Oswald. He continued that when the man walked up to get into the pickup truck, he was carrying a package wrapped in brown wrapping paper about 4 feet to 4.5 feet long. He said he told this man he could put the package into the back of the truck, but the man said the package contained curtain rods, and he would carry it with him in the cab of the truck. Yates stated as they drove along, the man had asked if he knew a certain party whose name Yates cannot recall now, and he had indicated to this man that he did not. He said the man then asked if he had ever been to the Carousel Club, and Yates had replied that he had serviced refrigerators in the past in a number of clubs, and that possibly he had been at this one, but he did not recall. Yates said that he had said to the man that there was going to be a lot of excitement in Dallas soon, referring to the president's visit, and the man asked Yates what he meant. He said he replied that the president was coming to Dallas, but that he personally felt that the president should not come in view of the Adlai Stevenson incident, which had occurred previously. Yates stated the man then asked Yates if he thought a person could assassinate the president. Yates replied that he guessed such a thing could be possible. The man then asked Yates if it could be done from the top of a building or out of a window high up, and Yates said he guessed that this was possible if one had a good rifle with a scope and was a good shot. Yates advised about this time the man pulled out a picture which showed a man with a rifle and asked Yates if he thought the president could be killed with a gun like that one. Yates said he was driving and did not look at the picture, but indicated to the man that he guessed so. Yates said that the man then asked if he knew the president's route for the parade in Dallas, and Yates replied that he did not know the route, but that it had been in the paper. He said the man then said that he had misunderstood him, and that actually he had asked Yates if he thought that the president would change his route. Yates said he replied that he doubted it unless they might for safety reasons. He said as they approached downtown Dallas, the man indicated that he was going to Houston Street, and that although he was going to Irving, that is, Yates was, he told the man he would drive off the expressway to Houston Street and let him out there. Then he would go back to the expressway. Yates said he went off the expressway on Commerce Street, turned off on Commerce Street on Houston, drove north on Houston, and let the man off at the corner of Elm and Houston Streets. He said he saw the man cross Elm Street, but does not know where he went from there. He said that as the man got out of the truck, he recalled him saying something about the triple underpass, but cannot recall exactly what was said. So we have these two sightings of Oswald on November 20th, 1963. The first one at 10 a.m. Oswald is in Oak Cliff at the Dobbs house. The second one, 10:30 a.m., Oswald picked up in Oak Cliff and brought to the Texas School Book Depository. It seems to me that you have to believe that these are two genuine sightings of Oswald. Either that, or you have to believe that Ralph Yates and the employees of the Dobbs house are colluding to perpetrate a hoax. And I don't think anybody believes that. So this really happened. Now, you might question some of the details given. You might question some of the details of what Ralph Yates said about Oswald. But how the hell could Ralph Yates come up with this and have the same date as the Dobbs house? I think this has to be two genuine sightings of Oswald. Now, the evidence against these two sightings is that Oswald was supposed to be at work at that time. He got to work, I think, at 8 o'clock. So he couldn't be at the Dobbs house at 10 o'clock or taking a ride from Yates at 10:30. And the FBI deals with that here. Now, I don't think the FBI ever in a document put these two sightings together. That might be too dangerous to do. But when they were talking about the Dobbs house sighting, they wrote this: with reference to the allegation of misdowling that Oswald was in the restaurant at about 10 a.m. November 20th, 1963, it is noted that Roy S. Truly, warehouse manager, Texas School Book Depository, advised Special Agent Nat A. Pinkston on November 29, 1963, that Oswald's working hours were from 8 a.m. to 4:45 p.m., with a lunch period from 12 noon to 12:45 p.m. He said, however, there was no punch time clock. On November 25, 1963, A.S. Aiken, bookkeeper, Texas School Book Depository, made available copies of payroll records which reflected Oswald worked an 8-hour day on November 20th, 1963. And never once is there ever a positive statement about that, about where nobody was ever asked, was Oswald late one day? Was he late on November 20th, 1963? Nobody at the Texas School Book Depository was ever asked that. Nobody ever volunteered any information on that. So what we have here to disprove these two corroborating sightings is a sort of negative evidence. It's the lack of evidence to the contrary. That is, the evidence implies Oswald was at work, but there's no evidence that he wasn't at work. I mean, if he had not been there, then the paperwork would still look the same if somebody at the Texas School Book Depository had not made a notation of that, and nobody was asked. So it seems to me that this is very weak evidence against the Oswald sighting, because nobody was even asked about November 20th specifically as to whether Oswald happened to be late. The evidence is lack of evidence. So when you have positive evidence, that is these two sightings of Oswald versus the negative evidence from the Texas School Book Depository, I think you have to judge that these two sightings did occur, and that lack of a positive statement about Oswald at the Texas School Book Depository at this time, I think indicates there's some collusion going on at the Texas School Book Depository.